Good day, everybody. I'm not saying good morning or good afternoon anymore because it's stupid. You could be seeing this at any time. And I'm not even sure what time it is as I'm recording it. So, good day, everybody. I think we'll stick with that. That could be more of our shtick. So today we're going to look at the next thing in the book. Now, the next thing in the book is advertising. Now, advertising is probably, arguably, the most common use of emotive language in terms of popular media and culture. It's a way of trying to convince you to buy into or buy the product. You all know what advertising is, but we're going to have a look into how it works. Now, if you look in the book, you see that we're not going to be able to use this. All I've got is I've got a photocopy book, and it's just a black page with a couple of white dots on it. So we're not going to be able to analyze this because I can't even take a picture and share it with those of you that don't have the book. Those of you that do have the book have probably got a photocopy as well, so you're not going to be able to see it. So I reckon that at least 3/4 of us aren't even going to be able to see what's printed in the book. So I'm going to take the spirit of that exercise and I'm going to create something new. But first of all, I'm going to give you a talk into how advertising really works. Now, advertising is huge. It's a really, really big subject. So all I'm going to do is break it down into the basics, and we'll have a quick overview. There's a lot more to advertising than just branding and marketing, but we're going to look at that first, and I'm going to explain how the key elements work. The first thing about advertising to remember is it locks two things together. Now, it uses usually some kind of emotive language or some sort of emotive imagery to conjure up a feeling, and then it connects that feeling to something logical, i.e. The brand itself or the message that they're trying to advertise to you. So what it's trying to do is connect the emotional and the logical together and create cognitive dissonance. It creates a cognitive gap in your logic and reasoning so that you have to fill it with justification, which means that you become brand loyal. You're going to find that people more likely are going to argue for things that aren't true. Okay, we've talked about this before. Now, the Russians discovered this back in the I think the 50s and 60s in brainwashing experiments. I'm not even making this up. The Russians started out brainwashing programs where they were taking captured Americans and learning how to change what they thought. They were learning to break down their psyches and rebuild their psyches up again in a new way. So what they would do is they would use violence, torture, fear, lack of sleep to break people down so that their conscious mind started to fall apart. As vile as this sounds, this was happening, and the Americans adopted it too in the MK Ultra program. So no side here is innocent. They're as bad as each other. So these people learned how to break somebody down emotionally so that their brain fell apart. Their whole logic and reasoning structure collapsed. Now, there was a very good example of this in an episode of Star Trek, which I'll use it as an example. Now, in that, one of the main characters, Captain Picard, now he's a captain. He's a very successful man, he's a very intelligent man, a very logical man. And he goes on a mission and is captured by the enemy. Now, he's questioned and interrogated over days. They break him down, they make him, they take away his clothes, they stop him from sleeping, they have bright lights in his eyes so that he can't really see. They make him eat insects. They treat him horribly so that it breaks down his dignity and his self-respect. And then eventually they find out, the enemy find out that his being captured is illegal, and they send him back. But before they let him go, the man asking the questions asks him how many lights he sees. Now, there were always 3 lights, and the interrogator says, no, there are 4 lights. Tell me there are 4 lights. And eventually, just as he goes out, he says to him, tell me there are 4 lights. He says, no, there are 3 lights. And then later on, he goes back to work, and he's talking to his counselor, and he says, the problem is, as I was being let out, I saw 4 lights. And that's exactly how this works. Your brain wants to see 4 lights. It wants to see a way of getting out. It's looking for a way out. And the only way out, and this is how brainwashing works, the only way out is to connect to what they're telling you, to accept it, and to follow along. That's how the beginning of brainwashing works. We break you down, make you see why everything that you thought was wrong, and then we give you a way out. Don't worry, we've got the answer. Heard that before, I'm sure. So we instill the fear, we ramp up the emotions, we break down the logic, and then we give you a way out. All you have to do is follow us, and you'll be fine. And that's how brainwashing works. Now, with advertising, it's more or less the same thing. We're connecting you up with logic and illogic. And as we said before, people will fight harder for something that they have been programmed to believe. And we found this in the brainwashing experiments with these people who were re-indoctrinated. So Americans who had their patriotism ripped away from them and were then indoctrinated into socialism would then fight much harder for socialism because it's their way out. They've been through this horrible event, and the only way they was able to survive it was to buy into socialism. They were programmed. So they know it doesn't work. They know that none of this is true, so they fight harder because we fight harder for things that we know aren't true. We've talked about this before. People will argue for their religion because when you agree with them, it reinforces their belief structure. So with advertising, we're looking to create cognitive dissonance because you'll fight for it. Excuse the low light, this is the best I can do. Here I am in James's bedroom, which is it's pretty messy, but it is what it is. So with advertising, the first thing you need to do is connect these two ideas. You need to connect an emotion with a logical connection, okay? Now, the first way to do this is brand awareness, okay? This is why all big companies, all small companies have a logo. A logo is your branding, and you've got to make people connect that brand with the idea that you're selling. And here's a great example of it. We've got Batman here. As soon as you see this, you start to think of Batman. If you're a huge Batman fan, then you know this comes from the 1980s movie, the 1989 movie with Michael Keaton. Then we've got the later Batman version. This is A Dark Knight. We've got Spider-Man. More Spider-Man. You love Spider-Man. You love Spider-Man. As soon as you see these images, you get the idea of Batman popping into your head. And it's the same with all these logos. We've got the Spider-Man logo over here. As soon as you see that, you know exactly what that is. We've got batarangs sticking out the wall, and again, as soon as you see them, you know it's Batman. And that's how this works. We're connecting an image with an idea. Now, in some cases, it's as simple as a logo. In other cases, it's something else. And sometimes it's a bit more insidious. Now, if we look at an example like, where is he? We've got Captain America. So Captain America is an insidious example of a promotion of patriotism. So we've got this ridiculously positive character. So Captain America always says, does, and thinks the right thing. In the comic books especially, he's the ultimate man. He's had all of his negativity removed through the conversion. He's stronger, he's more powerful, he's better than anybody else in the universe. He may not be the most powerful superhero, but he always wins. And he's Captain America. He wears the stars and stripes. So we're literally connecting the idea of America to the emotional idea of who this man is. And who this man really is America as a metaphor. America is better than everybody in the world because we've got Captain America who says so. And that's an example of connecting one idea to another through cognitive dissonance. DC tried it with Superman and failed. Superman never really caught on because he's just not American enough. He has the red and the blue, but not the white. If the logo had been more white, I mean, this would have been a more obvious example of him being Captain America. And he basically is. I mean, he was invented in the 1930s, I think it was. And he was basically the Superman. He was the super American taking on the evil Nazis. That's how a lot of these characters started. They were political propaganda. Make no mistake about it, most of these comic book characters were there to sell an idea. But look around your own house, everything is logoed up, and that's because these logos represent the idea of what it is that we're selling. He's off. We've got Jim Beam, which is a brand of whiskey, which I only bought because it was cheap and regretted it. It's awful, absolute crap. So I always associate that brand with foul-tasting whiskey. We've got this, the KTM. KTM are very, very good at branding. Not only do they have a distinctive look, and they do have a very distinctive look, nothing else looks like a KTM. Those bikes look unique. Not only that, they've done a great job of colour coding. They only release their bikes in 3 colours, black, white and orange. And even if you're an expert on KTMs, you know what the colours mean. If they have black and orange, it means it's the top of the range version. The black version is usually the custom version. The bright orange version is usually the race version. They're very, very good at color branding, so that as soon as you look at their bikes, you know exactly what it is. And if you look at other motorcycles, they all do the same trick. Hondas are red and white, that's what they race in. Triumphs are yellow. Kawasaki is green. Yamaha is blue and white. And these bikes all have these colors in their racing team. And it's instant. As soon as you see those colors, you know exactly what that bike is, or at least who made it. Then we've got the logos attached to cars and motorcycles and all the other things. But basically anything you pick up. We've got the GoPro logo. What's in my hand? I pick up the Flex Office logo on these pens. And as soon as you've had a few of these products, you start to identify with them. And then we end up with a thing called brand loyalty. Now, if we've had something that works for us and works well, we're going to become loyal to that brand. That's the idea behind this. So we look for that logo, and we're unconsciously connecting the successes we've had before with the successes we're looking for in the future. So we generate brand loyalty, and we all do it. In fact, it got pretty extreme in England with cars. When you learn to drive in England, you have to go through it's usually at least 6 months of practice to drive a car. And you normally would go to a driving school. So you'd be taught by a professional driving instructor. I don't know how bad it is now, but when I was in England, you had to have dual controls. So the car had to be modified with a steering wheel and a brake on both sides. So the instructor could take over in an emergency and stop you from killing somebody. Which sounds on the surface like a really great idea, except it ignores the fact that no one ever killed anybody learning to drive. When I learned to drive, my dad taught me. We went around a estate. We went around a trading estate late at night. I learned how to drive. Nobody got hurt. No one was in any danger. I actually taught a friend to drive in a car park. So it's nonsense, but that's the law. Now, what happened is we'd see these car companies giving cars away. And that was how it worked. They would build the cars themselves in-house, and they would give them to the driving schools so that you would learn to drive in this particular car. Same with motorbikes. My friend Aid in England, when he learned to ride, he learned on a Honda, I think it was a Honda NTV, and it was donated by Honda. And the idea is that these learners will spend so long driving this car, learning about this motorcycle, that's what they're going to buy. And it almost always works. It's such a great way of connecting you with the product that they're selling that it's worth giving away free cars. And we're not talking about one or two. They were giving away thousands of these cars. They were giving them to all these driving instruction schools, motorcycle schools. It's literally worth them giving away thousands of vehicles because they're going to sell tens of thousands more. It develops brand loyalty, and it works. It works. The one you learn in is the one you want to buy. 9 times out of 10, people are going to like that brand. Brand loyalty is huge. But of course, logos and brand loyalty don't work at all unless you've got some way of getting that product into people's hands. For that, we need adverts. We need to explain to the audience what we have and what we've got to sell you, and we've got to make them want it. So we've got to create an emotional need. And again, we do that by connecting an idea with a logical requirement. So we have the logic in your head. Take mobile phones as an example. The logic is, I need a mobile phone. I've got to have a new mobile phone. Then we have to create this emotional need. I would need you to go out and buy my brand. So how do I sell you my brand? So we have to come up with an idea that connects with you as the audience. Now, not everybody in the audience is going to connect to the same ideas. So we have to come up with an idea that connects with as many people as possible. That's why we see advertising generally be dumbed down. We see it the same with movies. We see movies are advertising. They're advertising themselves to you. So the way it works is we dumb ourselves down to the lowest common denominator. Now the lowest common denominator is basically the dumbest guy in the room. And it's usually a guy because of the spread of intelligence. Women tend to pool around the middle, men not so much. And most idiots are men. And that's a fact. So what we try and do is we dumb it down to the dumbest guy in the room. And this is well known. The statistics of this are well proven. So we dumb our advert down, so we're appealing to the idiots. That means that we're appealing not just to the idiots, but to everybody else. We don't want to exclude anybody from our market share. My God, it's hot in here. We don't want to exclude anybody from our market, and that's what we see. This is why movies have gotten so absolutely awful in America. We want to sell that movie to as many people as possible. So what we do is we avoid any complications. We take out all the clever stuff and we dumb it right down so even the idiot in the room can watch the movie. And that's how movies are made. These days you see a smart movie and it's still got action scenes and nonsense and pretty girls taking their clothes off so that we attract the biggest possible audience. Everything has been dumbed down. Now with advertising, we need to appeal to as many people as possible because we are literally in the business of selling to the biggest number. And that's how adverts work. So what we've got to do is connect our mobile phone product to your imagination. We don't do this in a logical way. We can't. I can't simply walk onto a television screen or a YouTube channel and say, buy my phone, because it's very good. It's a great product at a low price. It's got this in it, it's got this chip, and we think it's going to do the job that you need it to do very well because it's basically working at this price point. No one will ever buy that. No one buys that. We just don't. Instead, what we see is iPhones coming out saying, iPhone, it's the choice for the people who really know what they want. You know, it's the choice for the person who likes quality. They're simply the best quality phones on the market. We give them that idea. It's not true. It's nonsense. Samsungs, they're a smarter choice because you don't pay as much, but you get a little more. So they're the smart choice. They're the choice for the person who doesn't have money to burn, but we're still appealing to you as a luxury brand. We're a luxury brand, not a great one, but we're a luxury brand. Then we have all the others sort of vying for their place in the market around them. My phone's a Nokia. And of course, it slightly worked on me. I was looking for the cheapest phone that did the most. Simple as that. This was my first ever smartphone. And I wanted to get the most for my money, so I did some research. And I came up with a few phones that were basically waterproof, because I know I'm going to get it wet. And this was one of the choices. I thought, oh, Nokia. I've had a lot of Nokias over the years, and they're pretty robust. So the branding worked. I have some brand loyalty to Nokias. I would say that I worked in a phone shop and we all knew that Nokias were the best. You know, we wouldn't buy Panasonic, we wouldn't buy Sony because they'd break. Nokias wouldn't break. They tend to be better built. But Nokia's been taken over by Microsoft. I knew that, and I knew that this phone was built in India for the Indian market, so I knew it was lower spec. I knew it wasn't a real Nokia. I knew it wasn't made in Europe. But I still bought it because I had some brand loyalty, and honestly, I hate buying mobile phones. I hate it with a passion. So I ended up with this thing. But each brand is trying to connect you to their idea, to their philosophy. We see the same thing with cars. We see the same thing with movies. We see the same thing over and over again with all products. Look at cars. Cars, for instance, Lexus. Lexus is nothing but a brand. It's nothing. There is nothing high quality about a Lexus. It's a Toyota. It uses the same chassis, the same engines, all the same parts. But they sell it as a luxury brand. They make it look more luxurious with trim, with a few extra options on it, a little bit of extra refinement that costs them nothing to make, and they sell it as a brand. So they make people want it because it adds status. And that's how iPhones are sold. That's how Apple products are sold. I'm more important than you because my branding says so. So what they've done is they've taught you to think about their product as an extension of who you are. In fact, now, a lot of us are nothing but the products that we wear. And that's how advertising works. Somehow we've got to come up with an idea to sell an emotion and then connect it to the logic of your product. Your product is a real thing. Now we've got to sell you the emotional need for it. And it works. It works very well. Look at the big brands like Coca-Cola. You look at a Coca-Cola advert and it's usually, they would never come on the screen and say, this is mostly sugar. If you drink this, you're going to get fat. You're never going to see an advert that says that, although that is the honest, true facts of the situation. We never see that. What we see is nobody mentioning the drink itself. We don't even talk about that anymore. We've got the brand. You know that if you see a red and white logo with the scrolled writing, it's Coca-Cola. You only have to see it at a glance. You know exactly what the product is and what they're trying to sell you. So in an advert for Coca-Cola, what you're going to see is a very attractive man or a very attractive girl, and they're going to be having a lifestyle that you want to buy into. It's going to be a very handsome man drinking Coca-Cola, and then a girl looks at him over a crowded room and smiles. And that emotional idea that I want to be as cool as this guy, and he's drinking Coke. So we're creeping in through the back door of your imagination and your intelligence, and we're basically insulting it. We're connecting this emotional idea. These cool people living this lifestyle are using this product. So next time you're in a shop trying to decide what you want to drink, there's that product. And the emotions come back. They come back as a wave of memories that you're not even conscious of, and suddenly you want that brand. And that's how brands work all around the world. All these brands are the same. They sell you the idea, they sell you this message. Look at TV adverts. The way they normally work is generate an emotional response. A very quick way of doing that is to use comedy. Comedy always sells. One of the most successful brandings in the UK was pot noodles, oddly enough. So these were exactly like the pot noodles here. You add water, leave it for 5 minutes, then you eat it. The difference was these pot noodles were absolute garbage. They were awful. I mean, they were noxious chemicals. There was no food in them at all. It was just a mixture of blended sawdust and chemicals from China, and it was just the worst. And they were garbage. And everyone knew they were garbage. But they sold. And they sold because they came up with a brilliant idea to market it as basically comedy, and they advertised that it was filth. They advertised that the people eating it were dirty. They advertised this comedy idea that these noodles were quick and easy, cheap and nasty, and it worked. People bought these things in droves, and it created an enormous branding for pot noodle. It works. They did the same thing with a brand of drinks. What was it? I can't even remember what it was, but it was a brand of fruit drinks. And people were opening it, throwing fruit at each other, covering each other with sticky drinks, and it was just ridiculous. But again, it was selling the idea of comedy, that our product means nothing, but every time you see it, you're going to smile, you're going to laugh. I'll just get a quick pot noodle. They're not as bad as all that. And it works. It creates this connection with the emotion that they're selling in the advert. And that's what you've got to be careful of. They're hooking you in. They're making you associate the facts and logic of the product itself with the emotion of the advertising. And if you can connect those two together, you're going to sell the product. It's as simple as that. Next thing we've got to worry about is getting that information out to as many people as possible. And again, advertising works on that. Now, there are lots of ways to get your advert out. Media has changed immensely. It used to be that you had a few options. It would be a newspaper ad, maybe a poster ad, maybe a radio ad, maybe a television. But the internet has changed all that, and it's changed it forever. It hasn't really changed it in any huge way, but it has changed the number of smaller options we've got. Television adverts still work, but they are disappearing. Because these days, television channels are disappearing. The old media system of buying into a TV channel is on its way out. It's disappearing. I know it's still fairly common here, but globally it's on its last legs, and it won't last. It won't see out the decade. I'm not sure if any of us will. We're all going over to streaming services. I'm not even sure the streaming services are going to last. Netflix is in financial trouble. Loads and loads of people have jumped on the bandwagon. I know Disney Plus is in serious trouble. They can't get an audience. So maybe this is going to collapse as well. But at the moment, people buy into a streaming service, and because they've paid money to watch these things, there are no adverts. Bless you. There are no adverts. So instead of that, adverts have to go into different places. And we still see them in cinemas. I don't know how you feel about that, but when I pay to watch a movie, the idea of being advertised at for 10 minutes kind of annoys me. And I make a point of never using any of those products because I don't want to be sitting there and advertised at for 10 minutes. I've paid my ticket. I want to go and see the movie. I do not want to be advertised at. I will make an exception for coming soon movie trailers. I like movie trailers. I like to sit there and watch 10 minutes of those and think, yeah, don't want to watch that one, do want to watch that one. Oh, that's interesting, never heard of that. I like movie trailers, but I do not want to sit there and watch adverts for Coca-Cola or the local mobile phone shop. They are an insult to my intelligence, and they are annoying. I've paid to be there. I haven't paid to be advertised at. I'm not a product. Turn it down. So that's disappearing as well, because most people react the same way as I do. It annoys us. It really gets to us. Newspapers, magazines are pretty much dead as well. No one buys them. Newspapers are dead all around the world because no one trusts them. News media, print media is dead. In America and England, we no longer take media seriously. Those people have basically failed the population so many times that no one buys papers anymore. And why would you? Why would you pay, what, 1,000 real? I think, well, it was when I left anyway, 1,000, 2,000 real for a newspaper when you can go and get exactly the same thing online to a higher standard for free. Now, why would you bother? So no one does. So newspapers are pretty much dead. So the advertising you see in the back of newspapers is increasingly becoming kind of desperate. You know, it's for stuff that you wouldn't want. You know, stuff that nobody wants to see advertised anywhere else. And I'm not joking. It's porn and sex lines. That's what you actually get on the back of a national newspaper. So you're being sold the idea, this is news. We're telling you what's going on in the world. Also, this is where you go to look at porn. It's ridiculous. And no one's taking this seriously anymore. So those kind of adverts are drying up too. Magazines are dead. Magazines are long dead. I used to buy magazines. When I was your age, I loved magazines. Motorcycle, car, guns, all sorts of things. You'd buy them because they were basically the internet. That's where you find out about coming soon. You get good reports on how things work, new ideas. They were good, but they're dead too because they were just basically the internet. We've replaced magazines with websites. So now we see advertising on websites. We see pop-up ads. Now again, pop-up ads are very much treated the way I would look at cinema ads. They're annoying. And if your advert is popping up in the middle of when I'm trying to do some work, I'm not going to buy your product. I'm going to associate your product with hating it. But they haven't really caught up with that yet. The advertisers haven't caught up with the fact that by chucking an advert into a YouTube video and making me watch it for 10 seconds, you're annoying me, and I'm associating your product now with how annoyed I am at having to sit through the advert. I'm only sitting there waiting to press the continue button. I'm not looking at your product. I'm not thinking, this looks interesting. It's counterproductive. It's counterintuitive. We also see banners. Now they're more popular. You know, we go onto a website and we see related adverts down the sides. I can tolerate that. I don't usually see them because I use Linux Mint. I use lots of freedom-based software which blocks all the adverts for me. So I don't really see a lot of those. But if they're scrolling down the side and they're just there if I want to look at them, okay, I can see that. I saw one once on Facebook, quite scary actually, this was about 10 years ago, for hair replacement products. So Facebook knew I was bald, so they've obviously been analysing my pictures and said, oh, this guy's bald. They were trying to sell me hair growth tonic, which obviously doesn't work, otherwise there wouldn't be any bald people left. So I get the point of that. Now when you've got a mobile phone, it's unavoidable. You're being advertised at all the time. You've got no freedom if you've got a mobile phone, simple as that. You've got no privacy, you're a product and you're being advertised to all the time. So this is the latest way of doing it. You look at a news article, I do read the news when I'm eating at work and I can't go out. I do watch the news, I read some articles, and without exception, they're always advertising me something. So that's a very good way of advertising too. But again, we've got to be careful to connect the positive emotion with the logic of what the product is that you're selling us. I'm a pretty careful shopper because I'm careful with my money, I'm reasonably intelligent, so I like to do my research. If I'm spending money on a product, I like to know what the product is. I'm the kind of guy that stands in a supermarket aisle reading the back of packets to check the ingredients, to check the chemicals in it. I like to know what I'm buying. I like to look after myself and my family. I'm very careful about what bikes I ride. I mean, I love my BMW. I've got a BMW motorcycle. Love it. But I was very careful when I bought it. I did my research. I didn't buy it because it was a BMW. I bought it because it had a Rotax engine, and the Rotax engine was known to be the most reliable engine. I'd never had one before. I spoke to a scrap dealer. He said, "This is the bike you want." And I said, "Okay, why do I want it?" And he said, "Look," he said, "I've got 20 Rotax engines all lined up on the shelf," and he said, "I can't sell them." He says, "Because what happens is the old BMW bikes get crashed, or they get so worn out and beaten up that they're worthless. So I buy them." He goes, "I buy them for $20 to buy the whole bike, and I scrap it down and I put all the engines, because the engines work perfectly, they've never worn out. The bike may be smashed up, but the engines are good. I put them on the shelf and no one ever buys them because engines never wear out." He said, "So these engines just don't ever go wrong." So I said, "Okay, that's a great case. I'm going to buy one." And that's why I bought that bike. Also, it wasn't made by BMW. I did my research on that as well. Now out here, I tend to buy Hondas because, again, I know they're the most reliable. I know I can get parts. I know I can get parts for Hondas if they're not reliable. So I've had to change the way I buy motorcycles. My phone is a Nokia because I did my research and got the most I could get for the least money. I bought the GoPro that I'm holding in my hand right now because, again, I got the most for the least. Did my research. I didn't buy the latest one because it had an overloaded processing chip. I bought the next model down, which I got a discount on as well, because it was the better buy. It was simply the better choice. So I'm very, very careful what I spend money on. But most people aren't. And it does get past me. You know, sometimes I'll buy something on a whim. And it might not be a lot. It might be a small thing. But it's from advertising and marketing, and it gets in. No matter who you are, no matter how careful you are, eventually some kind of adverts are going to creep in. As I say, I've got a KTM motorcycle toy. Now that's a branded toy. So somebody made that toy, they got money out of me, and KTM got money for that because it's branded. So they got money for it too. So they did get a little bit of money out of me because I do like the look of KTMs. I'd never buy one because they're unreliable, but they make a fantastic looking motorcycle, so they were able to squeeze some money out of me. And this is how advertising basically works. As we keep saying, connect the emotional need to the logical product. The product is logic. That's a logical, fact-based, absolutely verifiable and measurable thing. The product is a thing and it can't change. You and I can both look at this phone. We can both look at this phone and it is the same to both of us, logically. It has the same processor chip. When I give it to you, it doesn't become an inferior product. It remains exactly what it is. The difference is in how we perceive it, okay? Some people are going to look at that and think, wow, this is much nicer than my phone. It's got no scratches. Other people are going to look at it and laugh and say, not as good as my iPhone. Everyone's going to look at this phone differently, and that's where we sell. We sell to that emotional perception. We can't sell to the logic because most people do not buy logically. They don't think logically, okay? We probably do think more logically at this end of the market, the lower end of the market where people are getting as much as they can for as little as possible. Most people don't shop that way, and you all know what I'm talking about. You're all probably dreaming of a Lexus or a sports car. None of you are dreaming of a Prius. None of you are thinking, I wish I could have a very practical car that doesn't go very fast and gives really good mileage. That's my dream. No one thinks like that. I've got 3 proper motorcycles at the moment. I've got the BMW, which I did buy her for practical reasons, and I've got a Varadero. Now, the Varadero is a 1000cc sports bike that does about 25 miles per gallon. It's a complete pile of junk, but I want it because it's fast. Simple as that. I want it because it gives me an emotional rush. And when I ride it, I feel like, I don't know, a sense of freedom because it can go anywhere and do anything, and it's really fast, and it's kind of silly, and it's big as well, and it makes me feel, it just makes me laugh. You know, you get off it and you think, wow, not many people can ride this. I like this bike. And that's why you do things. We do it because it makes us feel something. That's perception, and that's where we sell. We never sell to the logic. We always sell to the perception, okay? Unfortunately, it doesn't just work with products. It works with politicians. It works with governments. It works with everything. And you have to be very careful what you're being sold. Remember, the product never changes. It's the same for everybody. It's your perception of it that's always different. Okay, so this is a very, very brief overview of what advertising is and how it works, okay? Now, it is just a very brief overview because this is a massive, massive subject. We haven't even gone into marketing yet. Maybe we'll do that next time. So we're going to have a look at the exercise in the book, and although we can't do the exercise in the book, I am going to give you something very similar to it, almost identical, and I think we're going to move towards coming up with a product for yourself. We're going to do a project, I think. But for now, go to Google Classroom and you'll find the exercise.